Now what? Well, you know, in the lead, you saw me shoot a few rounds through a J-frame Smith & Wesson, and then I looked at you and I said, well, now what? Well, now we're going to tell you what, and the what is how to reload that ammunition. And even though there's a lot of reloading videos around, I think some of them might be a little bit too complicated. And so what we've done is gone right back to the very basic thing. And I'm going to show you how to use a Lee loader, which is the most simple way to reload ammunition. And by the time you're finished with this video, you should be able to have the skill set to go buy your own loader and go ahead and load some ammunition. And just so you know, my first Lee loader I ever bought in my life was when I was 15 years old, 45 years ago. Do the math, I'm an old guy. This is it. Now nowadays, Lee loaders have changed somewhat. The packaging is different. So I just got this one from them. Let's pull it apart here real quick and you can see there's a little chart that tells you different reloading data, which we'll go over. There's a very simple instruction sheet, and oddly enough, all the tools are virtually identical 45 years later. One of the key things that makes the Lee loader work is that they supply a simple scoop like this. And then on the chart it tells you how much of different types of powder this scoop holds. It's very simple, and you'll see in a minute. Okay, what we have to do here first is we have to decap, and what that means is it just means you need to take the primer out, and they do this very simply. They have a cutout here, this little container. The case goes there. This fits in the little hole, the primer pocket hole. You tap it like that, and lo and behold, the primer gets knocked out. It's very simple. I know people who do this with a nail. All right, now the next step is to actually resize the case. What happens when you shoot a cartridge in a gun is the case expands to the size of the chamber, and so not all chambers are the same. So what you need to do is in this case is you pound this into this die here, which squeezes the case back down. But first we have to lubricate this, otherwise the case can get stuck in the sizing die. So this is actually very simple. And it seems bizarre that you're using a hammer to do this, but you are. I like to use one of these dead blow mallets. And you can pound it right in like that. I like to look and make sure it's level, and there you go. We just resized the case. Now we have the case resized and we have the primer out. Now what we have to do is prime the case. And this is very simple. Lee has come up with this clever little platform here, which is spring-loaded. You put the case over it. And now, at this point at least, and it certainly wouldn't hurt to do it earlier, but at this point where you're dealing with live primers, make sure you put on some safety glasses, because especially in these things, every once in a while you might be a little overzealous, and as you go to seat the primer, they pop. It doesn't really cause any real problems, it's just a bang. So what you do now is you pound on this, and it actually drives the primer into the primer pocket, and there's a change in sound when it seats. So let's see. Ah, there it is. Okay, so now if you notice, the primer's seated flush, and the case has actually been pushed out slightly against this spring-loaded portion. We need to get the case out of the die, and they've got this cool tool right back to it again. What you do is go ahead and put your case in there like that, pound it, and lo and behold, the case comes out. And at this point, go ahead and just leave it right in this little die that they have. Now, in order to seat a lead bullet easily, what is important to do is go ahead and flare the case mouth just a little bit. And Lee has given you a tool to do that, and what it is, it's just a little die right here, which when driven in will expand the case mouth slightly. It just bells it slightly. Now, I pre-measured this scoop, and they say that in the chart that this much of a wide assortment of powder will amount to different grain weights. I happen to know this one when you scoop it like this, and I like to put some loose powder in a bowl like this, not too much. Scoop it once through it, you don't want to pack it down, and then go ahead and put this little die back on here, and you actually just dump this right into the case. So I always like to kind of flick on a little bit and to make sure all the powder runs down into the case. Now they have a really cool thing here, and what this does is it will seat the bullet in the case. So let me show you what's happening here, is that you'll drop a bullet down here, it'll go down and it will catch in the case there where the case mouth is, being held in place by this cool little die, and then when you push this down, you'll feel it seat the bullet. Okay, now you'll notice this plunger here will screw out and screw in, and what that does is it adjusts the depth that the bullet will be seated at. And depending on the size of the bullet and the weight and the shape of it and stuff, you'll have to adjust this in or out. So what we're going to do here is experiment, and first I'm going to push it in, and it didn't really feel like it pushed, so I'm going to adjust this out further, and then I can feel it start to seat the bullet, and you just tap it down like that. So let's take a peek. And what we're going to be doing here is making sure this case rim gets up to that little indention there around the bullet. And we're almost there. So now I'll turn this out a little bit further. Okay, one more time. And let's see if we're about there. I'd say we're about there. Okay, so now what you can do here is you just lock that lock ring down, and now from now on, when you get to this step, all you do is put a bullet in, put this on, tap it until it stops, and you'll have a seated bullet. Okay, now though, remember, the case mouth is belled slightly, and what that means is it may not fit into the chamber, and it's not really holding the bullet very well. On the other side of this die, there's a crimping fixture inside, and so what we do is just flip it over, put it over the case till you feel it bottom out, and then I like to kind of tap around in a circle a little bit like this. And then what we're doing here is I think you can see it, but we've actually crimped the case around the bullet and into that groove that we had it seated to. And so, believe it or not, we just reloaded a .38 special cartridge. It's as easy as that. Well, there it was, a little quick lesson on how to use a basic Lee loader. You know, those Lee loaders cost a little less than $40 right from Lee. I see them discounted for more like about $35. And if you think about it, because you can load about 50 rounds an hour once you kind of get your feet underneath yourself, it'll pay for itself within an hour or two. And that's a pretty darn good investment if you ask me. So I'd recommend giving it a shot. Some primers, some powder, some bullets, a Lee loader kit, go make some empty brass and have a good time. Hey, remember though, when you're working with those live primers, to make sure you wear some safety glasses. So, all right, hey, thanks for tuning in.